Alright folks, I'm glad to be back. So we're going to be going live real soon here. Getting ready to start with this AMA stream for today. So hope folks are doing pretty good today. It's a nice sunny day out here in the Midwest. It's a pretty nice feeling, you know, in that sense too. So we've got, really today I think we're looking to just kind of do some chat, right? Just kind of hang out, kind of see what people are feeling in terms of what kinds of questions they got about jumping into grad school. Alright, let's get ready to get started. Yo, what's going on, Samurai? How's it going? Just here kind of chilling today. So I know we're kind of really just looking to kind of see what folks really are feeling. Nice, nice. Dig it, dig it. All right. We got some questions. All right, so feel free. I think you are the first in line for today. Yeah, I know when I was in grad school, man, you know, one of the main things, how did I decide on PhD program? Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. Like, funny enough, my wife was going to the school that I was thinking about applying to. Yeah, well, so I guess in this sense, what are maybe you looking for out of a PhD program? Like, what kind of stuff do you want to do? Do you want to like do research, or do you want to teach, or do clinic work? Yeah, do research and also counsel. I can feel you on that. I'd say, especially with that, it's like, I think finding programs that, I'm a huge proponent of like the practitioner scholar model, right? So it's kind of the idea of like, hey, we're going to teach you how to really do clinical work. But then really what that goal is we're going to also help you learn how to do research. Right. So at the same time. Yes. You got to bring the research back to the community, man. Right? It's like, I feel like if you don't, then what is the purpose of the research, right? At that point, it's just kind of like, you're doing something for it to get locked away somewhere, right? So yeah, I always kind of look for programs that are maybe sometimes social justice oriented in that way too, because then they're like, you know, that their mission is kind of more centered on advocacy at that point. So sometimes that's like actually like a PsyD program. Right, you want to work directly with the community. Okay, so maybe like, so like community initiatives and stuff like that, or like, community level work in that sense. Yeah. Okay. I guess I think of like community psych programs at that point, like sometimes in like liberation psychology programs. So I know like there's a few PhD programs. I know like Point Park, they have a PsyD program, but I know they have a community psych program too. And then Pacifica, they do that one's a PhD. So yeah, there's a few programs that are kind of like in that vein. Yeah, I'd say most of the time it's really just trying to find places that kind of segue with what you're about, and then you kind of go from there. Did you think you're gonna be there for like maybe like 4 years, 5 years? So you'll be there for a while, It makes me think about like, so I guess in a sense, like, what is there any kind of perspectives or anything like that you really kind of feel drawn to, or that you really like working with? Yeah, I mean, it depends on because if you want to do a lot of work in the community, I guess it depends on like the kind of work. Like if it's maybe melding research too, then I would think of, because there are PhD programs in that vein. Like counseling tends to be, it's like a bridge, I think, between kind of some of the more socially oriented kind of stuff, and then just kind of also doing more clinical work at the same time. Right. So I think it depends on like which one you want to find yourself doing more. If you want to work more on like a bigger community level, then community psychology tends to be a good one, but you don't get as many PhD programs, I think. Right. And so then the counseling, you're going to find more PhD programs. Yeah. Okay. So then, I mean, I would think then like a PhD program, would work well. I think you could even take a lot of that, a lot of like your own research, your work, and then just, keep applying it back towards community, stuff like that. Like I'm always, like a big thing for me is always like, hey, okay, I do, maybe out here doing work, but, how am I kind of contributing back towards, the community that I lived in, that I grew up in, right at that point. So, really trying to go, okay, how do I maybe do advocacy work at that point, right, with my own maybe PhD, like as itself, right? In that sense, like maybe I don't need a community psych piece and I can do something else with that, right? So then you could do a counseling and then be like, okay, I'm gonna go help out these different organizations, maybe do some different like mental health awareness things for like maybe like a boys after school program thing or something like that, Yeah, right. So kind of those kinds of pieces. That's what I would normally think about, typically. And that's the nice part about just, I think, even having a PhD in like a psychology field, one that I think especially melds like theory and practice, because then you get, I think, the chance to kind of go across both dimensions, right? Like you can be a researcher and then use that research to kind of help your community, right? So I think that's like kind of a newer thing though. It's not, I think, sometimes the initial go into psychology in the early field was like, yeah, we're kind of gonna touch that, but we're not gonna touch that, right? So that's your goal, is just to be like, I can be like, okay, like, hey, somebody needs this guy who knows about, black boys and mental health. Oh, I know this dude Samurai who's like, who knows this, right? So then you're the one who kind of is people are gonna look to right at that point. So I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing when you talk about like, I think just how to really get a degree in this field and then really take that degree and then kind of apply it in the ways that you see, okay, this is where I see the work needing to be done, right, at that point. Okay, so then maybe thinking like, trying to think if there's any other trying to think any other programs that are around like the country. Nice. Yeah, research positions. Yeah. How's that? It's one of those things, I think, looking at research positions, you definitely are trying to like kind of imagine yourself in that position, like, right, like doing the research, like working in wherever the place is, right? Because you're like, all right, I want to make sure it's research that I kind of want to do at the same time. Yeah, so I mean, if you got any questions about like kind of looking at research, like positions and stuff too, I'm always happy to kind of talk about that as well. Yeah, I can remember, I mean, these days I think I think it's a nice part about getting a PhD is then I think you've got really much more ability to do research, right? And then you can do that research that really helps the communities that you're trying to help. Yeah, right? Kind of just working with like, you know, it's like you see people who are doing research in, you know, different areas, different like perspectives, topics, right? And then you're like, oh, that sounds really cool. Like I really want to, you know, see if I can like link up with them. Yeah, so I always say if you're like trying to link up with folks, like especially teachers, you know, it's like folks really tend to have pretty busy schedules. I find if you get them like right before summer lets out or like right as school lets in, you're probably more likely to get sometimes a response. Nice. Mindfulness, nice. Not ready to start research yet. Yeah, that's always sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes that means it's like really worth it, right? Like just waiting to kind of see. Yeah, usually, you know, some teachers go on sabbaticals, and then you're like, okay, usually it's maybe like, you know, couple months worth of that, and then you're just kind of like, okay, I need to like, you want to catch them like right before that, or like right when they come back, you know, in that sense, the hope that they kind of open your email or your response at that point, you know, whether you call them or anything like that. So my grad school experience, it was definitely, how would I say, an eclectic experience in a lot of ways. You know, I went through like a 1-year master's program from like an accelerated course, and then I went to a like straight into the doctorate program. And so it was really just like this kind of like this marathon. I like rolled straight out of undergrad, straight into master's, and then kind of went through the doctorate. And so it was like almost like, man, it felt like I was in school for like, you know, the better part of my like early adulthood life, right at that point. It was definitely you know, it was kind of trying at times, I'd say, just really just being in that kind of space. Yeah, right? Like you're like, this is what I tell people, is like, I'm like, if you feel like if you're gonna leave and then you're maybe not gonna come back to finish, then you just gotta go through. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really weird. It's like you kind of get that time off, and then there's a part of you that's like, I could just not come back. I could just leave, just never return. Right? That's the thing. It's like that's how I felt too. I was like, I really don't want to lose that drive. I was like, I just got to keep going. Then I'll just like kind of like make my way through that, and then just deal with it. And then you're like in it, and you're like, oh man, I really wish I could just stop now. And then you're like, no, I already didn't start it. Can't stop. It's like it's just never. It's like just a continual motivation at that point. It's a unique experience. So I got my PsyD from the Michigan School of Psychology is what's called now. So at the time it was the Michigan School of Professional Psychology. So yeah, now we do our, like we have a 4-year PsyD program. So I teach there now too. So that's where, I kind of ended up kind of working in the long scheme too. So I like it in that sense because it was really, I like the perspective because it's a humanistic existential school. So really the emphasis is on helping people like really understand each other and themselves, in a really relational context. And so when you're working with people, you're working to understand them from their, perspective instead of kind of putting your own kind of piece onto that, so it's just, I think, a very unique perspective in that way, and one that really is needed, right? So that's kind of where I kind of went to really start to work towards, okay, I want to, do my work that's gonna be about benefiting people, particularly, Black Americans at that point. And so I was like, all right, I like the school's aim and their mission, and so that was where I ended up going. Plus, I mean, at the time, funny story, my wife now was, at the time, my girlfriend, and she was like, hey, I'm going to this grad program, and you should try this place. And then I was like, it was like right after undergrad, so I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I was like, school's kind of boring. Can I just go do something else? And she's like, yeah, you should just try it. And I was like, oh, I'll try the master's program maybe. And then I never stopped, so I was like, here I am. Right? And so it's just like, I was like, make sure you take a water break and check your posture. It's like, I need that half the time for me, because half the time I'm like slouching, like when I'm like looking up on like the screen and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say most of, otherwise really going through grad school, it was a lot of, I mean, as you know, it's a lot of work. You do get strange things, right? We do live in a society that's got a lot of racialized pieces, so it comes up in grad school too. So I definitely wouldn't say it was without its, hardships at the same time, but I mean, thus far, I felt like it's been worth it. So that's, kind of my perspective. But if you ask me, like, people ask me, like, if you could do it all over again, would you do it? I'm like, I don't think so. I probably just, it's like a one-time deal. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a strange tension between, I went through it and I'm here, so that's cool. But it's like, I wouldn't do that a second time around. Seems like a lot at that point. I can't, like, for folks who go back and get another degree or another doctorate, more power to them. I couldn't handle it. So, but yeah, so I think really at that point, you're really, because you got a long haul. You got 4+ years of kind of going through school, and really always, I think at times you start to kind of second guess, like, okay, is this really what I want to do? Sometimes you're like, oh man, I could just do something different. But you kind of need the, I think part of what helped me push through was like, yeah, but this is something important, not just for me, but for other people at that point. Yeah, see, that's how us folks who goes through grad school are like, yeah, 2 PhD, what? Like, are you? It's like, are you a demon or something? Like, what are you talking about? Like, people don't do that these days. So yeah, right. Yeah, I was just thinking about, you know, the new Demon Slayer movie that just came out. So I was like, man, you know, this, I still haven't seen it, so that's still like rattling around in my mind every once in a while. Right? See, it was because it only came out in theaters. They were like, every other thing comes out on streaming. Oh man, oh, I didn't heard the manga is something else, so I can't even. I'm like, whew. Yeah, I know that's one of those special ones. Like, yeah, like let's come around every once in a while. But yeah, you know, I mean, that's the other piece. Oh, I just almost started watching that. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, you know, Tokyo Revengers looks pretty cool. I was like, let me kind of look at it, and then I was like, I was like, the premise, okay, see, it's really good. Okay, so see, someone was like, maybe check it out. So see, now I gotta check it out. Yep, see, now I gotta check it out. It says great, and so now I gotta check it out. That's cool though, because I just started on My Hero, like season 5. Feel like I'm gonna blast through that, and then I'm gonna be looking for something else in like a week. So sweet, I'm gonna check that out. So thanks for that one. Yeah, it's like, that's probably one of the funniest things. It's like, I like kind of being able to talk to my clients, you know, about anime, talk to clients about video games. I mean, you see all this stuff I got back here. It's like the same room I do therapy out of with people. So they pop on, looking at me like, yeah, man. They'd be like, what's that you got back there? It's like, is that Thor? I'll be like, yup. They'd be like, oh my god, that's so cool. And then I, you know, can do some strange, or like wrap it into like the therapy in some weird way. Be like, yeah, you know, so it's like you gotta access, you know, your Thor-like qualities. I do. So I do private practice on the side, usually because I find like trying to teach clinical stuff is real hard to not still be doing the skills yourself. You get kind of rusty, I feel, otherwise. Then you'd be trying to teach people and they'd be like, what is he saying? So yeah, I keep a private practice, like a part-time. Yeah, I've done a lot of different things. You know, if you really, that's the nice part about kind of having a doctorate. You know, you just get to really kind of have your hands in a lot of different, sometimes projects, a lot of different, like, I don't know, learn a lot of different skills, stuff like that. So they have a PsyD and then they have a master's. Yep. So they do the PsyD instead of doing the PhD. Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to think. You know, their main thing right now is they're really pushing more for like social justice, multicultural, like really psychology and therapy at that point. Yeah, then of course, you know, you gotta have the, I think the, really that focus on like really working for, you know, the people that you serve at that point. Ooh, yeah. See, that's the hard part, man. And I bet you people would be like, you'd be in class sitting there, and all of a sudden they start talking about like black people, like working with black people, and you're like, oh no, like somebody don't say something weird. Yeah, so it's needed. You're right, that's for sure. It's like you laugh because you know it's true. Yeah, right. That's good. I mean, that's good. You know, it's a good program in that sense. It's, you know, you got a good cohort. Yeah, I'd say, trying to think, how long is your program? Three years, yeah. That's probably pretty standard, I think, for most masters at this point. You know, you get some that are like 4, you know, stuff like that. So I'd say the hard push is nice, finish up your first year, sweet. So then imagine you guys got to do like an internship probably in like year 3 or something like that. Oh, nice, you started new one in fall, cool. Nice. Yeah. It's good stuff. Yeah, that's usually most models. So then, I'm trying to think. So, what's your, you know, what you're doing as far as your practicum, or like what kind of setting it's in? I mean. Oh, nice. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it works out a lot these days. That's like all how I do my work. Family and couples. Cool, cool. Yeah, going for the LMFT, right, at that point, so yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they'll probably give you more of it, right, as time goes on. Probably as it gets close. Yeah, usually as it gets closer, probably give you more of the specifics, you know, right, about what kind of stuff they're gonna have you do and all that. So that's cool. Be doing probably a nice little mix of some clients then. Family and couples are, you know, those are a very kind of good niche like category to get working with. Oh really? How'd that go? Right. It's kind of good to just kind of get your feet wet, kind of get you into it, you know, kind of get you started with everything. I mean, if you have any questions about some of that stuff, we can always talk about that too. Oh, yeah. How do you want to approach counseling? Yeah, it makes me think too. Like if that's the case, and I think definitely there's a lot to be said about like kind of yourself as much a part of the counseling as like any other things you do yourself. I mean, techniques and all that kind of stuff, because they have to go through you. So it's like the way you do stuff is all you. Like I always like using, you know, humor. Yeah, I generally kind of like how I am now. Things like that. Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you kind of gotta use. I mean, family system is so important. Really, it's always an important part of kind of most modalities. I think it needs to be at that point. You know, just in that sense that, you know, you gotta have, I think, kind of like an eclectic approach as much as possible. Not using different skills, you know, just trying to have that integrative perspective on things too. Yeah, I think you would find that, you know, that's something, especially humanistic, you know, my schools, there's a lot of schools across the country that are pretty big into to housing that perspective as well. Right? Yeah, that's how you know you're kind of like putting pieces together. You're like, yeah, this really seems like it kind of makes sense. Right? Just like in my head, it really seems like it makes sense. That's how I tend to like to work. Like I always use a kind of mix of perspectives, kind of like humanistic, existential, and then like a multicultural approach with a really kind of a nature psychology, eco-psychology perspective kind of mixed in there. And I find that I like those because they all seem like they all fit well for me. And then using whatever else kind of pops up in that sense. Right. Then you even find that that's going to inform then how you do other stuff too, like other kinds of work at that point. Oh man, imposter syndrome. So I guess this is what I always this is what I'll tell my students sometimes too. Because I dealt with imposter syndrome, especially in the way where it was like, trying to think, like especially in the way where people were like, I got into the PsyD program and I was like, I'm in the PsyD program. Like, what is this? Like, is this? Still feels like I'm in the master's program. And then I got, then I was like, oh wait, I'm not in the master's program. But really, in a sense, I guess I just kind of came to think about it in a way where it was like, started learning about a lot of people that practice psychology and don't do it in a very ethical or safe way, unfortunately, right? So then kind of like, I feel like, I kind of know more than those folks, right? And so I was like, maybe I can do this. Just like, I think a little bit at a time. It was kind of like always kind of having that challenge at that point. Right? That's what I tell you. Just being like, man, I just saw somebody not be able to do that. See, there you go.
But it's not a thing about making it accurate.
And you just got to tell yourself that every once in a while. Like, I don't know if I can do this. And then think about how there's tons of people who probably do it. And then, they'll work out too well. Right? So then you're probably likely to land somewhere in that mix. Probably a little bit better than that, right? So kind of like putting yourself forward at least. Yeah. Because I'd imagine like there's going to be folks that you're going to work super well with, right? I mean, there's going to be folks that might not work well with either. So there's always going to be some mix. Like I remember one time I like came in into the room and it was like a new client. I was like graduated and everything. It's like, I'm a doctor, cool. And then they're like, you look kind of young. How long have you been doing this? And I'm like, this is weird. So there's always gonna be people that are like kind of like looking at you, maybe kind of throwing a little bit of some shade in that sense too. It's always gonna, you know, so you kind of got to be like, okay, like people can throw the shade, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, really, you're trying to just do the work that matters, which, I mean, essentially just kind of putting your head forward. Yeah, you got these same headphones. Yeah, I love these Razer headphones. They work so well. It's probably one of my best headphone investments at this point. Yeah. Well, and think about it this way: if you do that, that actually makes people more mad, right? They're like, "What? He's not focusing on what I'm saying. He's just doing more and making me more mad." And you're like, "I'm just gonna keep doing me," right? So, I mean, it's kind of like the best way to kind of stick it to somebody at the same time. That part's kind of fun. Yeah, I take mini cues from, I guess in that sense, just the idea of like, hey, like the more, in a sense, the more you kind of do, you know, what's important to you, you're going to draw attention and they're going to draw all kinds of attention. And so, but I guess really your point is not to draw attention, right? So the attention is just kind of like the byproduct at that point. Yeah, I'd say most of the time, like these days, and I think especially just as you kind of get more into the field, people will eventually just kind of recognize you for like what you do, kind of reach out, you know, you're going to have people kind of interested in what you're doing, you know, just things like that. So then it kind of starts to sell itself a little bit more so.
You know, if it's an accident that's an error that feels good, then you leave it in.
Yeah, I had to write a dissertation.
You know,
yeah,
I want those.
That's part of the reason why I say I'd only do it once. Like, I did that dissertation. Yeah, I mean, it's not really that, like, I guess in a sense, mine was on, so what I did is, because, you know how, like I said, I kind of like the multicultural and the eco-psychology perspectives. So I did it on the relationship of looking at the relationship between ethnic identity and then one's relationship to nature. So correlational wise, like how do they inform each other and things like that. Yeah, the process, I'll say it this way. I chose a process that was going to be quick because I was like, I don't want to kind of drag this out. So it was really, mine was just kind of, I think my goal was to be done in 4 years. And so really there's this kind of idea like, you know, as what they say, ABD, an alpha dissertation. So you can get all your stuff done, be done in like 4 years with all your coursework, your internship and stuff, but then you might end up with that dissertation if you're not careful, right? So that's kind of the idea. I don't think that's really how it works because of life, but really in a sense, I was just like, I'm gonna choose a design that I know is pretty straightforward. I'm not trying to like recreate the the wheel here in the sense of like, I'm not trying to necessarily add something new out into the world with my dissertation. Like, yes, new in the sense of like, this is research that hasn't been done, but it doesn't have to be like, I found this like, killer like fire, like, statistically significant like idea. No, I was just like, okay, it wasn't statistically significant. Oh, that means I have to write less. Okay, cool. I'm done. Right. And so then I was like, my work is like after this and like out, like when I'm out in the world. Right. So I kind of meant it to be short and just kind of aimed it in that direction. Yeah. Kind of one of those things. It's like, yeah. And that was kind of what my chair, he was like, yeah, choose something where you're gonna be done. Yeah. I was like, you know, your focus is you want to go out there and do work, and really this is like a step towards that, right? So it's like, don't get caught up in that, and then that's keeping you from getting to that other part. Right, so it makes sense. I mean, like in a I guess in a straightforward kind of idea. Yeah, I used to, yeah, that's what they tell you. See, they're like, it's your dissertation. Like, it's gotta be, you know, it's gotta be the best thing since sliced bread. You gotta, like, you better recreate the world with this. And you're like, what? You're like, aren't I supposed to use this so I can get done with my degree? And they're like, yeah, but, you know, change the world. And you're like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. Yeah, it's like too much pressure. Like, you just need to get your stuff done. Right? If you find out some cool stuff in the process and you can report on some cool things, that's awesome. But what's going to get you out in the world so that we can have, you know, people like you out there doing the work that we need, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, it's like, I think grad school has this idea about like, grad school is all in all about itself. Yeah. Yeah, you know, just kind of thinking, and you're going to be thinking about it for a while, like what you want to work on. I mean, that just takes time. I feel like no matter what, everyone kind of deliberates on that for a while because you're going to spend a lot of time on it. So you want to choose something that you feel comfortable staring in the face for like days on end at that point. So it takes a little bit of like kind of figuring that piece out. Hello. Glad to have you join us. Yeah, we're just kind of doing some chatting. And seeing how folks are. Seeing what questions folks have about applying to grad schools. Or, you know, just grad school in general. You know, and whatever else in between. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, I feel like most of the time, by the time you're out of grad school, maybe like 2 years out, you forget what's your dissertation. You start to kind of forget it a little bit. You're like, and this will always happen. You'll go to like a party somewhere, and you'll be like, someone will be like, "What do you do?" And you'll be like, "Yeah, I'm a, you know, I have a doctor in, you know, like counseling psychology, for instance." They'll be like, "Oh, that sounds really awesome. So what was your dissertation on?" Oh, well, thank you for joining us. Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where then you kind of find yourself, I think, kind of explaining your dissertation to people. Like, they're like, "Hey, so what was that about?" It's like, "Oh, that sounds fascinating." So people are always going to want to know about it. And so it's just always going to sound cool to people. So it's like, really, to most of the world, I think the work speaks for itself pretty well. I mean, you're doing some pretty big work, right? At that point, like in a, you know, in the field of higher education. So people are just like generally pretty impressed about just like hearing about the title of your dissertation, let alone like what you actually studied and like what your results were. So it's like, none of that really matters. So it's definitely interesting that I think most folks kind of going into grad school, like their dissertation is like it's like the boogeyman kind of idea. right? Just because it's like a big thing. I think mine was, how many pages was mine? Mine was short. I think mine was like almost 100 pages. Like it was under 100, which was actually like pretty short for a dissertation at that point. But yeah, still, I don't think you imagine writing like a 80-page document, right? So that sounds like a book almost. I think that part's always interesting, kind of thinking about it that way. Right? It seems like a lot, doesn't it? Well, you think you're doing that over the course of like a year, right? So like maybe in a year you probably write like at least 5-10 page papers, so that's what, like 50 pages. And then by like end of the year you probably write at least 10, so you're probably writing at least 100 pages just spread out right across different projects, different classes and courses and stuff, right? And at that point, I think most of the time at that point, then you're just like, oh, kind of, yeah. So it's like you have like essentially you have like 5 chapters, and so you have like a committee of people who are like, hey, we're all here to like help you get through this thing. You know, they all kind of add their own piece to it, or own emphasis in that way. But really it's yours. So I mean, in that sense, you publish, right, that, or at least you're the author on that, but you know, then you have a committee. Typically they make you work chapter by chapter, you know, kind of in pieces. So like do a rough draft of like all the chapters, right, the first 3 chapters or so, and then come back, revise those, and then so you kind of keep building on top of it, right? And so, but it's dependent on what they, you know, your committee, like your chair looks at it and says, okay, here's your draft, I see you need to change this, I want you to add these pieces in. So it's often kind of dependent on like your committee, you know, so you get to usually choose them, right? So you choose people who you think are going to work well, who's what you're looking for, and that kind of stuff too. So it's kind of it's just like a long process, really. So it's really a lot of just kind of making your way through the process. Not to mention like IRB and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. So yeah, my colleague, his was 238 pages, he just said. And he's like, they had to remove and reduce that by 100. So it was even more than that before. Right? So people just have like, it just really kind of depends on what you're writing about. So, and then kind of what your committee wants at the same time. That's kind of why you find some folks that are like kind of get into that all but dissertation space, because it's really like this has turned into a big thing. Yeah, talk about being upset. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like need to touch those toes. Yeah, so like I'll see. I feel like I'm not even. So it's definitely one of those things. You just gotta be like, kind of like even your topic is kind of gonna set you up. Like if you choose a topic that tends to sometimes maybe be a bigger kind of piece, maybe there's a lot of pieces you need to explain about it, you're gonna be writing more. That's just kind of generally how it goes. So I always find that it's kind of one of those things you want folks to, again, that's also about your committee too, like who you're choosing and at that point. So it's always there's horror stories, right, out there. Yeah, I'm trying to think. It was like, I can remember my chair was kind of like, he was like, yeah, you can, it's not a big deal if you just need to, go an extra year to finish. And I was like, you don't understand. Like, I cannot do that. Yeah, see, yeah, it's like when folks in your committee start disagreeing on stuff, then you're in like a hot seat, because then it's like, uh-oh. Yeah, man. Anytime. Be looking forward to maybe doing some more of these kind of in the future, so feel free to hop on and see you around in the future. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Yeah, it's like, I do remember, I think my chair and advisor were pretty much just like constantly in agreement. They were just kind of like, yeah, that seems good. That's cool. And I was like, I like this. Like, can we just kind of have this? Like, this seems, it's like if only all communities could be that way, I guess. Yeah. So, in this sense then, I think we're probably getting ready, just about ready. Probably wrap it up pretty soon. So, this is my kind of first time just doing a Just Chat. Just kind of hanging out, so maybe looking forward to doing some more of these. I think maybe even trying to do some with having some folks on the, maybe on the stream as well. Yeah, maybe have some co-stream going on, so that'd be kind of cool. I'm kind of, I think gaming wise going to be kind of diving back into a few different titles. Kind of doing Outriders right now, and then maybe diving into some other ones in the near future, but definitely some of those. Maybe if competitive wise, maybe some Spellbreak. So, but you can stay tuned for those pieces. Oh yeah, on Outriders I'm playing, I got a Technomancer right now. This is my main. It's like level 20, or I think I just hit 24. I'm on like world tier 8. So right now I'm on PC. And then it's through Steam, so it's like, yeah, that's the, it's like part of me was like, I should have brought it to Xbox, because then the crossplay would have been a little easier. But I know, right? I know, they were like, we got crossplay, guys. Yeah, they're still working on that one. They were like, yeah, this is not working out like we thought it was. So it's like, not here yet. I think they just opened up some of the, I think some of the crossplay, but I don't think it's between, I think it's between Xbox and PS5, not between PC and the other ones yet. So kind of like, yeah. So hopefully soon, right? Because it'd be kind of cool. Jump on, maybe play some of that as well. Yeah. But I'll definitely be streaming, so you'll be able to catch some of that as well. And then, I think that's mainly it. And then I'm kind of always doing some RPGs here and there, kind of diving back into Devil May Cry series, just playing some of those old games again. So might stream some of that as well, but we'll kind of see it in the future. So I hope folks enjoy the rest of your days, and have a happy Friday, and enjoy the rest of your weekends. And I will catch you soon. Hopefully I will definitely be back on next week. Yeah, man, I'll see you later. Maybe not by this time, but hopefully maybe even earlier in the day. So oh man, Outriders, I am in, where did I just get to? I just got through most of the forest. Found the spoiler, there's aliens, right? And so that's where I'm at right now. So I gotta, I think, get to the other side of the forest at this point. So yeah, it's like, I think I'm like, I want to say like 25%, maybe like a third of the way through the story at this point. So yeah. But yeah, oh yeah, if you know, we'll have to link up with you, and then I have to link up with you, Ryan, on that one and kind of see. I got to check out the crossplay again and kind of see what the deal is with that, kind of see what's happening. Yeah, I know, right? I was looking at the achievements. I was like, oh wait, I'm only like 25%. Oh, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, well, that's good. I was like, I'll take that. That means there's just more I gotta do. So I wouldn't mind that too much. Just kind of got to see, like, half the time it's like the always online games kind of start getting me, because then I find I can't like play anything else, because then I'm like kind of like always progressing forward. So then I take like these small breaks, and then I'm like turn around and I'm like, oh crap, I still got all this stuff I didn't finish. So it's like the world of video gaming these days. It's like you still got too much to do. It's like I kind of don't mind having that problem. So, but all right, folks. It was good to see y'all, in the sense of seeing y'all in chats. So I will be back soon, and hope everyone enjoys their weekends. And take care.